Hello, welcome to News Tonight with me, Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. Coming up in this hour-long bulletin, government defends appointment of Adumboche as births and deaths registrar amidst a threat by CLOGSAG to begin a strike tomorrow.
That it is said that the position ought to be occupied by a civil servant.
We'll be live with leadership of CLOGSAG and get some reactions from a Labour analyst. Also, court convicts Akwatia MP for contempt and issues a warrant for his arrest over defiance of interim injunction barring him from being sworn in as a legislator.
The member so desires to proceed to be sworn in and to also participate in the election of the speaker and bear the consequences himself.
Also, NDC Chairman Johnson Aseidu Nketiah fined 3,000 cedis for omitting a necessary witness in a 20 million cedi defamation suit. In business, LPG marketers warn of fiercely resisting any attempt to implement cylinder recirculation policy. And on the international front, U.S. top diplomats to boycott G20 foreign ministers meeting in South Africa. We've got details of these and more here on News Tonight. Please stay with us. Let's settle for the details now. The High Court in Koforidua in the Eastern Region has convicted Member of Parliament for Akwatia Ernest Kumi for contempt of court. The ruling follows his defiance of an interim injunction barring him from being sworn in as a legislator. Presiding Judge Justice Senyor Amedahe also issued a bench warrant for Mr. Kumi's arrest after he failed to appear before the court for sentencing. The court had earlier restrained the MP from presenting himself for swearing in pending the resolution of a legal dispute. However, he did not listen to that directive and proceeded to take the oath of office in Parliament. Let's remind you of what happened in Parliament when the 9th House was being sworn in.
It is my noble duty to participate in the election of the speaker. In the case of Akwatia, the clerk to Parliament was served a process on the 2025 with an order of interim injunction from a high court in Koforidua. This order was served through the legal office of the Parliament. Subsequently, it has come to our attention there's a restraining order of a court, restraining not just a member, but a clerk to Parliament from proceeding or dealing with a member in this matter. I find myself constrained. All right, honorable members, so I have brought this matter to the attention of the House. That is my pleasant duty to do. The member may decide, may elect to participate, but in doing so, I'm drawing attention to Article 105 of the Constitution, and I read, I will read, and I read. A person who sits or votes in Parliament knowing or having reasonable grounds for knowing that he is not entitled to do so commits an offence and shall be liable on conviction to such penalty as shall be prescribed by or under an enactment of Parliament. Having done this, I have discharged my noble duty. I will end there.
Mr. Chairman, we have heard you. This is a house of rules and procedure that is not in doubt. This is a house that relies on precedence. I just have a simple answer to the point you made, and I have the instructions of my respected colleague-elect, Honorable Ernest Kumi, and fortified by the precedence of this House, which precedence is dated 7th of January 2021. I simply, Mr. Chairman, the member so desires to proceed to be sworn in and to also participate in the election of the Speaker and bear the consequences himself.
And the MPs of the 9th Parliament were being sworn in. But let's go back to what happened to court today. Citing overwhelming evidence of willful defiance, the court ruled that the lawmaker had acted in contempt. Attempts by the minority caucus in Parliament to justify his absence from the hearing through an official letter were dismissed by the judge. He maintained that the Akwatia MP had disregarded the court's authority. With a bench warrant now in effect, authorities are expected to enforce his arrest and ensure compliance with the court's ruling. Now, reacting to this, the minority leader in Parliament, Alexander Afenyo-Markins, expressed concern over what he describes as unfair treatment of the Member of Parliament for Akwatia by the Koforidua High Court judge. According to Mr. Afenyo-Markins, despite the alleged unfairness, the Akwatia MP remains committed to respecting the law.
We've become aware of the Koforidua High Court's decision. We are yet to procure the court ruling and the orders of the court. The lawyers are going to brief the caucus and we will come out with our position on the matter. Meanwhile, I'm sure all necessary steps will be taken to ensure that our colleague is law-abiding and ensure that the right thing is done. But we have to say that we are dissatisfied with the approach and we think that he has been treated unfairly. We would come out fully with our position when we receive full briefing from the lawyers.
On this matter, and engage lawyer for the Akwatia MP, Bernard Bediako. He's joined us via Zoom for more on this. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening to you. Now, we have been following the story since it started, right from the injunction up until the swearing in Parliament. I'm sure the question on many people's minds is, why did your client insist on being sworn in despite knowing clearly, even hearing the minority leader say, clearly knowing what the consequences of his actions are? Sorry, we can't hear you. Can you kindly unmute your device? Right. If you can hear me. All right. Please, can you hear me now? Well, I can't hear you. It seems there's a challenge with your line. I will try and work that out. But that's the lawyer for the MP for Akwatia, Mr. Kumi, who has just today been convicted for contempt by the High Court in Koforidua, and he's also been looked for an issue, a bench warrant, I beg your pardon, has been issued for his arrest. Earlier, we showed you what transpired in Parliament on the day of inauguration of the 9th Parliament, where he was cautioned by the clerk and told of what the consequences of his actions are. But while we try to work the lines and speak to the lawyer for the Akwatia MP, let me bring you another story from the courts. The Accra High Court has imposed a 3,000 cedi fine on National Chairman of the NDC, Aseidu Nketiah, for failing to include a crucial witness in his pre-trial checklist in an ongoing defamation case. The lawsuit filed by former Auditor General Professor Edward GHOne in 2018 seeks 20 million cedis in damages over alleged defamatory comments made by Aseidu Nketiah on NEET FM. Justice Audrey Kokuvite granted the NDC chairman's request to amend his checklist to include Brian Anku Sapati as a witness, but penalized him for the omission. Professor GHOne claims Mr. Aseidu Nketiah falsely alleged that he was banned by the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana and dismissed for dishonesty. He is demanding damages, a public retraction, and an apology in the Daily Graphic and on NEET FM. The case has been adjourned to April 3, 2025. We've been doing stories from the court, including the conviction for contempt of court that was in the Koforidua High Court earlier today. MP for Akwatia has been convicted, and we earlier tried to reach out to his lawyer via Zoom. We had a bit of challenge, so we're connecting to him via phone now. Thank you so much, Mr. Bernard Bediako, for holding on. I was asking why your client defied the court's earlier injunction and proceeded with his swearing in, clearly knowing what the consequences were.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Having me. Now, what you said there, for the court. I'm told them.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bediako. It's quite a hard day with technology here. It's difficult to hear you.
Can you hear me?
Much better if you can just speak up a bit.
The call has been put on hold. Please.
Hello, Mr. Bediako. Well, apologies. We have a challenge with that line. Hopefully, we can rework it and get his responses to our questions here on why his client, the MP for Akwatia, went ahead and agreed to be sworn in despite an injunction barring him from doing so. It's now time for Insight. Defended the appointment of Samuel Abu-Baidoo as Registrar of Births and Deaths, insisting it aligns with the Constitution. This follows a decision by CLOGSAG to embark on a strike tomorrow, Thursday, February 20, 2025, over his alleged political affiliation. Minister for Government Communications, Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, urged CLOGSAG to reconsider their decision, adding that Mr. Baidoo possesses all the necessary experience to take on the role.
Or that appointment is clearly spelled out in Section 2 of this Act. CLOGSAG has not questioned the competence of the current occupant of the position of registrar. They only say that he is politically exposed. There is no way that it is said that the position ought to be occupied by a civil servant. The president has acted in accordance with Ghanaian law, and for that reason, there cannot be a reason why Mr. Adum Botwe should be removed only because he is not a civil servant. If it is the view of CLOGSAG that in the past civil servants have occupied it, it does not mean that any other person apart from a civil servant cannot occupy that position. So we would appeal to CLOGSAG to rescind their decision to go on strike. A strike action we appreciate. It's one of the mechanisms through which they can drive home their demands. They can compel government to take a look at their grievances. But in this particular instance, we do not believe that sufficient basis exists to go on strike, because it will be unfair to the people of Ghana who pay the wages of all public officials, including members of CLOGSAG.
Let's now engage a Labour analyst on this matter. Mr. Austin Gami joins us via phone. Good evening to you. Thank you for joining us on News Tonight. Now let's explore this further. Earlier, CLOGSAG had issued a threat to go on strike. We understand that there was a meeting to try and solve this. Hopefully we'll get CLOGSAG to respond to that shortly. But we are back to where we began. CLOGSAG says we still do not want Mr. Adum Botwe, would rather prefer someone from our stock. Government is defending, saying that we haven't done anything wrong, legally speaking. How should this matter be resolved?
Well, if you want to talk about the role of CLOGSAG, they are a legitimate union. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And unions are formed to protect the economic and social welfare of their members. And that's precisely what they are seeking to do. Notwithstanding, when it comes to the issue about managing people and relationship, you can call it industrial relation, we don't do it from an adversarial point of view. We don't also practice it this way. That's why we have laws. And I heard you a moment ago that there has been meetings to engage. If there is anything like that, by the law, as a practice, not being legalistic, because our labor laws are written with the intent of managing relationship between the two parties. And Section 127, 3 and 4 will tell you that both the unions and their members, the employer and his assigns cannot do anything unilaterally. That's why we have laws, so that we will be civil. That is the way to go. Under the laws of Ghana, one body has been given the right to employ, and that is the employer. In this case, the employer as a state, headed by the president, under Article 195, it can employ through various means. They can also request the civil service to employ for them. Now, under the Labour Act, Section 8, they are the employer is the only authorized person to employ. In this case, the employer, the head of the employer of the state is the president. So you cannot hold his hand tied at the back under the canopy of somebody, whether he's been a minister before, like me, or somebody who has been a district chief executive before, like the one they are talking about, and whosoever must have the merit and the capacity to perform the duty. And the president cannot employ an opponent of his to prosecute his visions and missions. Cannot be done.
So clearly,
this approach is not appropriate.
Okay. And from what I glean from what you're saying, that CLOGSAG doesn't have a case then.
Well, if they have a case, they have to go through either the Civil Service Council, go to Labour Commission, or go to the Labour Court, or have a meeting through the Minister of Employment on behalf of government and themselves to be able to iron out their differences. They want one of their own to be employed into that office, and they are labeling the other person as a politically exposed person. Who is not politically opposed in this country? Everybody. Everybody. So I don't think it is fair to be doing to ourselves and calling upon, let me say, estimated 70,000 people who are your members by virtue of being union members to go on strike, full strike tomorrow. I don't think the members are, to that extent, not be able to read and write or appreciate the dynamics of this thing.
Right.
They have to understand what it is.
Okay, so let's flip the script a bit. So, in this situation, as we heard from government, its decision is justified by law, and as you have already stipulated even here, legally, in terms of the president's mandate and what he's required to do, the CLOGSAG doesn't seem to have any tangible reason to be embarking on this strike. But looking at the impact of this decision on the workforce generally, would you advise the president to probably look into the concerns of CLOGSAG, maybe meet them halfway with their demands?
Well, you are asking a legitimate question. If I were to be on the other side, I wouldn't go about it that way. We are running a country. There are laws that govern this country. In fact, if there is any policy anywhere written by anybody, either 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or 7 years ago, and that law or that policy is inconsistent with the Constitution and the Labour Act, that other policy must be jettisoned. That is what it is. Then they will not go, nobody will go to any court, and the law court would deliberately close its eyes over what is real. On the truth, we are quoting some Supreme Court judgment or delivery that says that they must ensure that they do not employ people who are not neutral. What is about neutrality? Neutrality is only in language. We're talking about people who are impartial. I am a consultant. I've worked for NDC before. I've worked for MPP government companies before. I even worked for President Kufuor's hotel for 2 years as his consultant because I'm an impartial person with a track record of knowing what to do. So if somebody is in the system that can do the work, you don't bring an opponent who you don't know his capability to do something that way for you. They have a case. They have a genuine case that they want one of their own to be promoted. Launch your case properly. I will support that. But calling upon people to go on strike is far-fetched.
Finally,
I want to urge them, they themselves should go to work tomorrow first. All the members should go to work, and then they should go and register this concern. I won't even call it protest. We don't deal with industrial relations with misuse of language. You have to properly use language as destined in the law. That is what it is.
Finally,
That's
Mr.
the
Game.
rule that they should go on strike before they resolve their matter. You are holding somebody's hand at the back, tie it, put handcuff on it, and say you shouldn't talk. Do what I want. Nobody practice that. This is a civilized society.
Finally, Mr. Game, seeing how far CLOGSAG has gone with this matter, if Mr. Adum-Botwe is to have effective leadership as Births and Deaths Registrar, what should he be looking at doing to mend the relationship between himself and the people he'll be working directly with?
The first thing is, that's the reason why they shouldn't even go on strike. The president, who is appointing many people, like other previous governments, including he himself as president now did before, all from Kwame Nkrumah's time, that's the way it is done. If today they want to vary it, they should go and state their case. Those of us who will listen to them will try and support either way, this way or this way. But I will urge everybody to go. So the president reserves the right to vary this appointment, but not under their pressure. Nobody does that. He's barely 2 months old in office as the president, and you are introducing strike as if it is a command. Nobody does that. Just last Saturday, all those who have been employed by Biden's business, many of them are chopped out. Last Saturday, they sent email to them to get out because the President Trump has an agenda to prosecute, and he does not have confidence in the people that they had previously employed. We must separate them. Nurses are nurses. Those nurses that are employed legitimately through financial clearance and so on and so on, they can engage. And I would support that because it's essential service, but there must be a hospital for them to work in.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Any other person, that's the way it should be.
I appreciate your time this evening.
Time and manage this country well.
Thank you so much for joining us. That's Austin Game, a labor expert, sharing his thoughts on the threat by CLOGSAG to embark on a strike starting tomorrow in protest of the president's decision to retain Mr. Adumboche as the registrar of births and deaths. That's how we end Insight tonight. Dramani Mahama has charged the newly constituted Council of State to rise to the expectations of Ghanaians by playing a more proactive and impactful role in national governance. Public sentiment over perceived ineffectiveness in the nation's governance systems has led many to call for the dissolution of the advisory board. There's a body, I beg your pardon. Here's a wrap of what transpired.
An official ceremony held at Jubilee House on February 18 had newly members of the Council of State inducted. The council is anticipated to offer a range of expertise contributing to decision-making at the presidential level. Speaking after swearing in of 31 members of the 9th Council of State, President Mahama emphasized that their role extends beyond offering routine advice, urging them to provide insightful and constructive guidance that reflects the aspirations and concerns of Ghanaians.
It is in this spirit that the Council of State was established, to serve as a reservoir of experience, a fountain of guidance, and a bastion of non-partisan insight for the executive arm of government. The Council of State, as a distinguished advisory body, is composed of men and women of integrity, experience, and sound judgment. Your role is not merely ceremonial, it is one of profound responsibility. You are expected to offer wise counsel on matters of governance, policy, and national development, drawing from your diverse backgrounds and experience.
Additionally, President Mahama urged the members of the Council of State to utilize their tenure to demonstrate their functional necessity to reassure skeptics of their critical role in advising the government and shaping national policies.
Some have even questioned the very relevance of the Council of State and called for it to be scrapped. I hold out hope that your tenure as Council of State members will convince those who may doubt your functional necessity about your importance and put to rest any such perceptions. On behalf of the people of Ghana and on my own behalf, I congratulate you on your appointment.
A former Chief Justice, Sophia Akufo, who was also sworn in as a member of the 9th Council of State, noted her selection as a former Chief Justice, said she will only focus on providing constructive advice to the President.
I'm a former Chief Justice, am I not? Do I or do I not qualify? The Council of State is a body that is supposed to be advising the President. I'm not going to sing his master's voice, so to speak. An advisor does not parrot. An advisor speaks with honesty. An advisor looks to the best interest not only of the person they are advising, but of the function the person is serving.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Council of State and former Speaker of Parliament, Abu-Baidoo assured the President that the Council will rise to the occasion and will avail itself to assist in shaping effective governance in the country.
But I want to assure you that this Council will be a Council of a difference. Fortunately, many members of the Council are people I've come across in my public life. Distinguished men and women in their own right. But more importantly, I have hope in this country. And this hope is consistent with your vision of empowering all manner of people, irrespective of their background.
With their diverse expertise, they are said to play a vital role in advising the government and shaping the future of the country.
Now, legal expert GHOne has raised concerns that the Council of State is gradually deviating from its constitutional mandate. Speaking in an interview on Newsroom, he noted the institution, originally designed to provide independent and non-partisan advice to the President, is now leaning towards political influence. This, he says, is undermining its role as a neutral voice.
A body of our senior citizens, our elders in the house, in the village, in the town, and most senior people in the town, so that when we need guidance, we all go to them, even the chief goes to them. At the end of the day, the excessive partisan image. If you look at what happened in Kumasi, the NCC business chairman was clear that the NPP contestant is agreed with the environment philosophy or identity of government, and therefore we cannot be still there. Left to advise the president. He's not making that statement. And you look at how the whole election went about. In partisan people who participate on back of the street, and they look at the number of persons who have been appointed. So that's what and that chamber of the government power.
We now have a fully constituted Council of State, and as it begins this advisory role, some of you have been sharing your thoughts on its relevance.
It's necessary because there's a saying that it's not one head that brings up a whole nation. So I think the President needs those people to help him in making decisions, because not only his decisions, he can make a decision that will not favor all of us, but those advisory boards, they have different people, they get in contact with people day in, day out, so definitely they'll know the needs of the state far better as compared to the President himself.
I believe Council of Elders is good, and it needs to still be in a system to still advise the President. Why? Even let's come to our political parties. They all have Council of Elders, though they have executive members, but they still have a Council of Elders. When it comes to difficult situations, they are the people they contacted and sit down and brings idea on board, and at the end of the day, it comes out of solution. So yes, our President also needs somebody to advise him. This is a Council of Elders. I believe they are people who have gone through in life. So being people advising the President is good, and it will help our President to be always on his toes.
They have to abolish that thing. It doesn't worth anything. I don't know any advice that they give to the President, because the sort of things some of them do, if indeed they are Council of whatever and they advise the President, they shouldn't do some of the things they do. Like for instance, the that cathedral thing, and then some other, unnecessary things. You understand? So for me, those things should be abolished. If they are taking salary, they are taking no money for no work done, for that matter. Seriously. I don't think there's a need for them. Now they are even voting. It's just unnecessary. That's why everybody is just 32. Council elders should be above 50, above 60. But now you see 33, 32 and all of that.
My understanding is that they play a supportive role to the president in terms of advisory on key issues that is going on in the country. They do have influence because in terms of that kind of advice that they give to the president, that determines how things will go in the country.
Away from the Council of State, the Ghana Journalists Association, GHOne, has given the Ghana Police Service until March 31, 2025 to identify and bring the killers of investigative journalist Ahmed Swale to book. Speaking at a media briefing in Accra, GHOne President Albert Kwabena expressed frustration over the prolonged delay in solving that matter. He's warned if the police fail to deliver justice, the association will escalate the matter to the ECOWAS Community Court for Justice.
Given the fast eroding trust and confidence in the police in respect of investigation, arrest, and prosecution of suspects involved in the murder of Ahmed Swale, the GHOne may seek redress in international forums. In that regard, we serve the notice that if by the end of March 2025, the Ghana Police Service has not come out with something concrete on the investigation, arrest, and prosecution of suspects in the murder case, we shall proceed to the Economic Community of West Africa States, ECOWAS, Community Court of Justice, to seek resolution of this matter. We rather take similar action for Latif Idrisi for similar reasons. In the case of Ahmed Swale, our international partners, including the Federation of African Journalists, FAJ, and the International Federation of Journalists, IFJ, have also indicated their readiness to pursue justice for the investigative journalists at other international forums.
The GHOne has also expressed deep concern over the growing number of attacks on journalists. Speaking at that same briefing in Accra, the president condemned reported assault on 7 journalists since President Mahama took office. He suggested broader hostility toward the media. He urged government and the Ghana Police Service to take swift action to curb the disturbing trend.
Ahmed Nketiah, while leading a joint news team to cover a police operation to clamp down on the activities of the illegal miners, was nearly killed by the mob. While grappling with the attack on Ahmed Nketiah as the first case of assault against journalists in 2025, the count became rapid when 6 journalists were assaulted within a space of 1 week. 4 of the attacks occurred in Kumasi in the Ashanti region and 2 at Walewale in the northeast region. It is very sad to note that in the month of love, when people are demonstrating love to their dear ones with red gifts, our colleagues who were in the line of duty were made to see red blood as reward for serving Mother Ghana. It is also disheartening to know that just about 50 days into the second John Mahama administration, we have witnessed 7 cases of assault against journalists. This is unprecedented.
While government has been reacting and dismissed claims by the GHOne that these attacks may be orchestrated by government, in an address, Communications Director at the Office of the President, Felix Kwachofosu, called the accusations regrettable and misleading, rejecting any government involvement.
By the Ghana Journalists Association yesterday, in which it was claimed